Charlotte, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a lot for joining us. We just talked that sustainable aviation fuel is special for both of us, probably bigger for you than you are working directly with a global leader in this segment. So tell us before we get into it deeply, how did you get there? What's your personal journey?
Well, I started with a small strategy consulting firm in Amsterdam focused on sustainability. And they did not only provide strategic reports, but they also actually started ventures with some of their customers. And the customer 10 years ago was KLM, and they decided to address the carbon emissions from KLM. And with that, 95% coming from kerosene, they decided we need a market builder, a market leader in that space in sustainable aviation fuels. And so SkyNRG came alive. And with that, my interest in aviation and aviation becoming more sustainable. So I joined the SkyNRG team in 2017 and have been excited to push that forward since.
Of course. Can you give us a little bit of introduction of the whole company, Sky Energy?
Yeah.
What you guys are doing basically in a
Yes.
nutshell?
In a nutshell, I'll try to do that in a nutshell. So we're actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year.
Congratulations.
And the first half of those 10 years was basically focused on creating awareness for and political support for sustainable aviation fuels, showing that it was actually safe and possible to fly on these fuels, and turning these initial developments in demo scale facilities into actually commercial scale facilities, and so supporting research and development to commercialize. So a bit of lobbying, a bit of raising awareness, communications, also actually creating the first supply chains for these fuels and physically delivering the fuels. And one of the things that I've been involved with is finding partners that are wanting to drive this transition to sustainable aviation fuels, and for them to help us close the gap, because there's still a premium with fossil jet fuels. So that was the focus for the first 5 years. Once we got there and there was awareness, at least within the industry, we said, let us take a more proactive role in actually developing production capacity for these fuels, but because that was still very, very limited. And so our company started focusing on that bigger picture, creating a team that's developing production facilities all over the world, looking at where the feedstocks are available, looking at different technology players that are active, looking at stakeholder interest in actually investing in these types of projects. And so with that, there became a different focus within the company. And so we still do the core things like lobbying, creating awareness, creating those supply chains, but we're now really stepping up and seeing that we are in the space of building consortia to create production capacity, and not just creating production capacity, but creating a blueprint for truly sustainable fuels, and setting the bar high for the rest of the market to follow.
Is there already a number you can give us? So how many? What's the volume that you
What
guys
is
are
the volume?
Yeah,
Well,
per annum, or for example, last
the
year.
current market volumes are somewhere between 10 and 20,000 tons of fuel to date. So that's far below the 1% of global fuel uptake. But with mandate discussions coming online, specifically in Europe and in North America, we see that there will be self penetration of the market up to 30, maybe 50% by 2050. So there will be a strong growth in these numbers. For SkyNRG specifically, we're working on the first production capacity development project in the Netherlands, and that will produce 100,000 tons of fuel. So that's already quite a multiplier for the fuel that's out there today.
Amazing. So that's the one you are going to do together with Lanzatech.
No, that is actually one that we are doing with another consortium, and that was launched about 2 years ago. The next project that indeed was announced just a couple of weeks ago is a project with Lanzatech, where we're creating a pre-commercial scale facility using a different technology and so different feedstocks, which is so needed to scale this industry.
Of course, and obviously we'll talk about it in a little bit more detail. As also, I had CEO of Lanzatech, Jennifer Holmgren, on the podcast twice already. First time
Yes.
more than 2 years ago when they had that famous first flight of Virgin Atlantic from US to London, which was partly fueled by sustainable aviation fuel. So really excited about that. Tell me, it is widely understood, of course, now that the sustainable aviation fuel will play a crucial role in reducing the emissions from the aviation sector. So what makes you guys, you people of SkyNRG, so passionate about this topic, about this new technology, SAF?
Yes. Well, I think we were there at the real beginning of things. So we were really, as a small company, and at that point, a very small group of people, so passionate about truly making a difference for aviation. So not compensating elsewhere, but taking the responsibility within aviation. We see that aviation has such an important role around the globe for personal and for business matters. And so flying less is obviously a very good way to reduce the impact of aviation. But with the growth of population, with the growth of welfare around the world, aviation will be here for the next decades to come. So if we do fly, can we do it more sustainably? And we knew that it was technically possible. We knew that it could be done in a sustainable way, but commercially just very far out. And being one of those leaders in the industry and quite alone in that journey for the first couple of years, it's really what we are as a company, the change in this industry. And now actually seeing that the first waves are coming and with mandates, potential tsunamis of sustainable aviation fuel, we see that our work has brought value. And now we're here to make sure that that wave is filled in the right way, so that it's truly having a positive impact on aviation's footprint and setting the bar high on sustainability.
Yeah, amazing work on that. And as you are saying, the times are changing. So especially in Europe, there is a massive support from the EU itself. There is, of course, the European Green Deal, Sustainable Smart Mobility, and very important part of that is the initiative called EU Refuel EU Aviation. So
Yes.
yeah, and you are, I guess, very important part of that. So can you give us a little bit more insights on this initiative?
Yeah. So a part of that EU initiative, they set out the Horizon 2020 goals, and the EU has decided to grant our consortium of organizations working on that pre-commercial scale production facility a grant of 20 million euros that will allow us with that consortium to secure a location, secure a supply chain, feedstocks, and actually create and build the first pre-commercial scale facility that's going to produce SAF based on waste-based ethanol. So I think that initiative and the Horizon 2020 grant actually allows us to set those first steps in Europe for a first facility like that. And as I said, current facilities are mainly based on using waste oils and lipids, but to actually scale sustainable aviation fuel, we'll need to use other technologies that can use wider available and sustainable feedstocks, like these waste-based ethanol sources. And so we see this as a very big step for the SAF industry, and a very big step for ourselves in combination with our consortium partners and for Europe. And the Horizon 2020, the Refuel initiative, has been the enabler of that project.
Yeah, amazing. So correct me if I'm wrong, but this technology is just awesome that Lanzatech has. So as far as I understand, so you get waste gases, like let's say from a steel mill, steel company, and guys at Lanzatech, they create ethanol from those waste gases, and then by magic you are doing, then it goes to sustainable aviation fuel. Very, very simplified. Is that correct, more or less?
Very simplified, and yes, Lanzatech or the Lanzajet technology that they use for sustainable aviation fuels can use those waste-based gases from industry, but they can also use waste-based gases from potential waste crops, grains, and such. And so a biological origin for the gases are a possibility as well, and those are the focus for this specific project.
Okay. Okay, very, very good. And as you said in the press release, when this deal was announced, this alcohol to jet facility should be capable of producing over 30,000 tons per year. So is that a lot,
Yes.
or so does it make this facility really massive, or it's just a middle scale? How would you rate
I
it?
would say we also call it pre-commercial. I'd say
Mm-hmm.
compared to really large conventional oil refineries, it's quite small. For this alcohol to jet facility, it is the biggest in Europe to date. And if you look at the current market of these fuels globally at 10 to maybe 20,000 tons a year, it is very significant. It is a very significant step. But I think this project should be seen as a paving the way for new facilities to come online in Europe and around the globe as a blueprint for using that specific feedstock technology combination to produce SAF. And so it's a very important step, a big first step, but following facilities will very likely be bigger.
Mm-hmm. And is it correct that basically the product of this facility will not be SAF itself? It will be just the base for SAF, or this facility will produce
We will
directly the
actually
fuel?
Yeah, we will actually be producing directly that
Mm-hmm.
sustainable aviation fuel. There will be other products, obviously, but 30,000 tons of the output will actually be sustainable aviation fuels, which will
All
be
right.
sold into the market. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And there is one more program that you are um, very active about, and that's called Board Now. So can
Yes.
you explain about that one as well?
Yes. Well, we actually created it with that shift from the first half of SkyNRG's existence to the last 5 years, where
Mm-hmm.
we said we want to have a more active role in creating production capacity. We had done some deals with passengers, corporate passengers, up to that date, where those corporate passengers say, we will take care of the premium over fossil jet fuel so that we allow airlines to actually absorb these sustainable aviation fuels and fly in them. And in return, we will get the carbon reduction claims and the other green claims that come along with that fuel. And so enabling that supply, that first supply of SAF. But what we've seen is that those short-term offtake agreements did not actually support longer-term production capacity development. Because if we need to invest in a facility like our facility in the Netherlands, the DSL1 facility or the Lanzatech facility, you will need to show investors that for the first 5 to 10 years, you have offtake guarantees. So organizations that are willing to absorb that premium. And so we decided, let's create Board Now, where we ask the large corporate flyers to make their business travel more sustainable, absorb the premium of a specific volume of fuel out of that facility that we're going to build. And by coupling all of those offtakes, we can show investors that there is a business case, and so that they can invest in a facility like this. So we're actually using those forward commitments to build facilities today.
It's very interesting concept. So basically, the people who will fly on those planes are actually like buying this SAF in advance. So where is the role of airlines in this concept?
Well, we think because the airlines were at the basis, right? They did the
Mm-hmm.
first offtake and took on the first agreements themselves, and,
Mm-hmm.
and and the price that came with that. But what you see is that airlines are in a very competitive business, so absorbing premiums for very large quantities will just not be possible. So we need to work together with all stakeholders in this space to take part in it and to take part of that premium. So we're actually not only looking at corporate customers or individual travelers, but we're looking at partnering with airlines, with airports, and with those travelers to absorb the full premium. And that is the model that we're working on today. So it will not just be the travelers, but it will be a combination of all of those stakeholders.
Amazing. My next question was supposed to be what the airlines, the airports, the whole community, what each of us can do to
Yeah.
support this movement of bringing sustainable aviation fuel closer to us as flying public. So, is it the best thing we can do is to join this Board Now program?
Well, obviously, it's a great way to take responsibility for your own flights and actually have that longer term term impact on decarbonizing aviation? I think so. So not talking about it, but acting is indeed a very good way, and board now offers that option. I think all of these stakeholders have a different potential role, obviously, in accelerating the transition. One of which that all have is actually talking about it and educating people and organizations around you, because we see that the more support there is, the easier it is to tackle this puzzle, to solve this puzzle. I think governments are really stepping up now in looking at how to incentivize and take parts of the premium away with policy. That's a very important step. I think industry players are really looking to invest in this solution and acknowledging that sustainable aviation fuels for the next decades will be a large part of that solution, and so a place to invest in. Airlines obviously taking longer term offtake agreements, working with their own customers to cover that price premium, and travelers talking about it and flying and taking their responsibility. And so joining a board now as a corporate, or potentially in the next couple of months, individual travelers being able to join a board now individual platform to take care of their own personal or family flights.
Very, very cool. There are a couple of things which are just phenomenal on the whole project of sustainable aviation fuel. And one of those probably that you don't really need new technology. So for either electric aircraft or other concepts that are out there, you need also, let's say, different technology on the airport side. For sustainable aviation fuel, everything remains the same. Is that correct?
That is indeed correct. Yes, that is the one of the greater things about sustainable aviation fuels. There's no need for any infrastructure changes. So no investments on the airport side or the airplane side or fueling infrastructure. It's basically a drop in fuel, as we say. So it can be blended with fossil jet fuel, delivered to a tank, and so distributed to airplanes tanking at a facility.
Yeah. So one of the main challenges to spread it more widely across the globe is probably the price. So at the moment, is it twice or three times more expensive than a classic Jet A fuel? Obviously, that's very cheap at the same time as well, as we speak. So what are the initiatives, or what can bring the price of the SAF down in the upcoming
Yes.
future?
A great question, and indeed, I think the biggest hurdle for scaling this industry, apart from looking at new technologies that can use feedstocks that are more abundant, looking at the price, where when we started off, we were looking at 10 to 15 times the price of fossil jet fuel. So now all the way back to approximately 2 times the price of fossil, taking into account that COVID has obviously pressed the fossil jet prices, but approximately talking about 2 times the price. And what we foresee for lowering that price is actually investing in those newer technologies to mature so that we can use them on a commercial scale, and they will use more abundant feedstocks that have less price pressure on them, potentially with an nth plant rather than a first plant. There will be other optimizations in investment in the actual facility that will bring down the price. And I think scaling the volumes at large will obviously have an impact. So it's partly in technology maturing, it's partly in policy that's developing that will pick up a part of the price, and it's partly in just scaling. And with that, yes, we can bring down that price. Whether there will be fossil parity, price parity with fossil jet fuels, that is to be seen, and definitely not expected in the next 10 to 20 years. But yes, we are making some big steps, have taken some big steps in the past 10 years, and we'll take some significant steps in the next 10.
Fingers crossed for that. Definitely great journey. And as you are saying, the big part of the journey has been already gone through, like from 10 times now to twofold. It's already a massive road that was already taken. So as you are saying, the more we do it, like with everything, the more we do it, the more we scale, the more we learn how to make it more efficiently. So yeah, definitely fingers crossed for that. And I think we are all looking forward to times when we will be able to go back in planes and fly all over the world as we did before, and doing that in a more sustainable way is is absolutely crucial for the planet as well. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. It's been great, lots of insights, really appreciate it, and we will closely follow you and support you on your journey. So as soon as the Board Now program is available for individuals as well, I'll definitely consider joining myself, and I will encourage everybody I know to do the same. And before we say goodbye, my last question for today, as you don't work directly in aviation, but it is very much related. So the question which I always ask at the very end at every interview is, what do you love the most about aviation or flying?
I think it's actually the travel and meeting people from different places and seeing different places. I think that brings me the most joy, from a family perspective, seeing the world, but definitely from a business perspective, working with so many different people with different views on aviation and on sustainability and on life. I think that brings me the most joy.
Amazing. Charlotte, thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you so much, and I will definitely keep in touch on that Board Now part.
Excellent.
Thank you.